Hello and welcome to another episode of This Australia. Where we're again on a construction site, and we are in probably one of the most expensive suburbs in Australia. Not just in Sydney, but in Australia. The area we're in at the moment is called Bellevue Hill. Now, All Sydney Construction is doing some extension here at a particular property here in Bellevue Hill. Now, what I've seen here, it's just this incredible view of the sea and this beautiful park in front of me. I mean, this is Australia. It's so beautiful, it's incredible. Now, you have to agree with me. Look at that. Okay, now, on this particular construction site, we have very limited space. So we have to utilize everything we can so we can save our space. And this is a typical example. Now, this is not a bad idea. This is actually a cistern for the toilet that fits within the frame, right? So we don't have the cistern outside that we lose space. And with limited space like we have here, this is very important. We're going to talk to our chief carpenter. Now, Robert, he's been working in the construction industry as a carpenter for decades, since he was a little kid. And he's been with us for quite a long time, and he's seen everything on construction. And he's the best to talk to us about the right construction and what we found in properties like this. G'day, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, Harry.
Mate, can you just tell us what problems did you discover in this particular property here?
Well, we were presented with a number of problems. Probably the first and foremost was the water issues. That had a lot of water penetration going through this particular level here on the top, which was going down into the second level. What had happened is that they'd applied a screed coat, a bed of concrete, if you like, which you put underneath tiles, but they put that on top of particle board flooring, yellow tongue, and they waterproofed over the top of it. And what happened is the waterproof that they used, it failed, and the moisture obviously then seeped through the concrete bedding underneath the tiles, then just went straight into the yellow tongue, which rotted the yellow tongue, and which in turn also penetrated the joists below and caused wet rot and a number of issues in the floor joists in the level below us. So it was quite a big problem. All probably could have been saved by the fact if they'd have just put down, say, compressed cement flooring.
Okay, so there you go. One very important advice from Robert is to make sure when you do your construction, the right material is used at the right place. All right, Robert, can you tell us a little bit more about now the other job in Annandale? Remember the job in Annandale, we had to actually remove that wall. We had to remove a wall about from there to there to make a bit more extra space for the bed. And we found all sorts of problems over there. Robert, can you tell us the first problem that we found there?
We started that job with a sort of a renovation in mind. Was the sort of the initial scope to redevelop the upstairs section. In the process of doing this, we discovered quite a lot of termite damage. And what had happened is the previous builders had discovered this, I suspect, probably mid-project, and decided, God love them, that they'd just build around it. So that's what they did. They basically reframed an extension around the existing termites nest that was in the roof. They'd fit the ceiling joists to around this existing ants nest. They were all in different directions, and we had to try and get some sort of consistency happening in the roof so we could sheet and do all of the rest of the stuff that we had to do. So we ended up having to do quite extensive fish plating to the floor joists and the ceiling joists to make sure that the place was actually structurally sound.
Now, Robert, tell us, why did we actually have to rip the whole bathroom that was renovated 4 years ago? Tell us why we had to do that.
During the investigations into the floor joists underneath this particular bathroom, we discovered that once again the floor joists were quite damaged, probably a couple of them irreparably, and it wasn't termite damage. It was actually water penetration through the tiles and through the floor and through the membrane and then into the joists. And so as a result, we had to basically tear apart the bathroom to ensure that the joists underneath were structurally sound.
Now, what about the tiles? Why the tiles were actually like a banana?
It really was quite a lovely bathroom. Very expensive house and very well presented, and it came as quite a shock to everyone, as did a lot of the things on that job, when we noticed that the wall had like a 50 mil bow in it. So once the decision was made, because of the water penetration issues that we had, the decision was made that we were going to attempt to fix the bathroom, but it was going to be quite an extensive job. We'd have to tear out quite a lot of it to do it. And once I did that, I discovered that it was a bow in the joist. It had a knot in it, in one joist, and it had a knot in it. And if you've seen knots in timber and radiata, some of them are quite big, and it actually really deforms the timber. I think it was just poor carpentry. Probably the best thing they could have done was just run a planer over it when they did it, if they'd have noticed it when they were during the building of it. There was a wardrobe, a full length, full height wardrobe behind in front of one particular wall. And when we took the wardrobe out, we noticed that the gyprock was rattling. You pushed the gyprock and it actually moved like 20 mil. And what they'd done is they've direct fixed the gyprock to the brick wall, which I've seen and can work. They didn't use the correct glue, if you like. I think they may have just used plaster. It's just broken the bond between the glue and the wall, and so the wall was loose. So it was very easy to take off. The wall just basically fell off as soon as we cut the cornice underneath it. The wall just fell out. So then we thought, well, this is probably going to be the case in all of the walls in this room. And sure enough, every wall that we went to, you go to do something and all of a sudden the gyprock was loose.
So what advice would you give to people that they are renovating or they are building from scratch, but they have no idea about building?
I guess one of the most important advice that I could give anyone is don't always accept the lowest quote. You pay peanuts, you get monkeys. It's always a good idea to check people's references, make sure they've got licenses. If you could go and check out maybe some of their previous jobs or something like that, speak to the clients. All these little things can obviously help, because geez, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on out there, and I find it. I've been in the game for 30 years, and you just find it time and time again. You end up scratching your head. How did this person ever get away with this? Why would they do it this way? And things like that. One of the biggest things that I find in building, and the problems that I've encountered, it's all based around water. You have to be so careful with anything to do with water, the flashing, your external, your plumbing, anything at all to do with water. That's the one thing that will cost you a lot of money, because once the place is built, you try and find the location of where the water is entering or exiting or coming through. It can run down a joist. It's just an absolute nightmare. And look, if you don't do it right the first time with your waterproofing membrane or getting your plumbers to do everything right the first time, you're just opening up a world of hurt. You really are. And this is, it keeps me in work, fixing other people's unfortunate problems. But geez, I tell you what, it pays to get it right the first time.
Thank you, Rob, and keep up the good work, mate.
Pleasure, Harry. All Sydney Constructions.
So, you heard it from the horse's mouth. No, sorry, Rob's mouth. We have another issue with the bathroom downstairs. Now, we have to actually install a toilet over on this side here, but we have these beams. Now, look what they've done. They cut a hole through a structural beam. I mean, who had let that plumber cut that hole in that beam? That's structural. Over here, it was a very heavy kitchen, and they made a big hole like this on the structural beam. Which engineer allowed that? Which builder allowed that to happen? Which plumber thought that he can go there and just cut a hole in the beam? That's a big no-no. You never cut any holes in the structural beams. Now, what do we have to do? We have to cross along these beams here and just put a pipe. No, we're not going to do anything like that. We could have made it structural and it could take the weight, but we have a bathtub over here that's going to take a lot of water and it's going to be heavy, so we can't do that. There's another apartment downstairs. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use a system that we use on the boats. And what's that? A macerator with a pump that will pump all the sewer out into the main sewer pipes. Very simple, very effective, and we don't have to touch any of the structural elements of this house. Simple and effective. And that's what it's all about. You have to always find solutions on the construction side, like we do here at All Sydney Constructions. So remember, anything you need from the building, any advice, if you have a house that is falling down, a wall that is sinking, anything that is going wrong in your house, don't forget, All Sydney Constructions will be able to help you out. We'll give you the advice, and then you can go and do whatever you like. Get someone else to fix it, or you can use All Sydney Constructions. Contact us on that email below or on the number, and we'll just get back to you and come and have a look at your property. Thank you for watching another episode of This is Australia and Beyond, and we'll see you next week with another exciting episode. Next time, we're going to have these amazing stories about boats again. Thank you.